YouTube. My name is Sarah, if you didn't know, and today's situation is my getting laid off story. I kind of have to just jump right into this because you're going to be able to tell from the title. I was laid off from my full-time job, so I'm just going to be sharing a little bit about how it happened, how I'm feeling, what I'm doing now, and what I've learned from this situation. If you are in the same boat, you've been laid off and you're looking for somebody to relate to, or you just want to hear a little bit about what it's been like, definitely stay tuned. For more happy or upbeat videos, make sure to check out some of the other things I've posted, or look for me on TikTok and Instagram at Sarah's Situation. Let's get right into it. So, like I said, I want to talk about what it's actually like to be laid off. If you've never been laid off, or I feel like people always kind of ask like what actually happened. So I'll start off and talk about that. I worked for a tech company, so yes, affected by the tech layoffs. And I worked on more of the business side, so I worked in human resources, focusing on recruitment and culture building. I worked remote. So I signed into my laptop, started my day of work, and spent the whole morning and first part of the afternoon working. Every week I would have a one-on-one with my manager so we could talk about personal and professional development, the work I'm working on, if I needed help, things like that. I signed into my one-on-one, super excited to share what I was working on, but instead of my manager just being there, there was an HR rep there. Instantly I was like, am I getting a raise or am I getting fired? At that point, I said hello to my manager, said hello to the HR rep, and my manager was like, I can't comment on much, so I'm going to let the HR rep take over. The HR rep immediately said, your role is being terminated for business needs. Effective immediately, you no longer work for this organization. Of course, I had a gut reaction where I wanted to be like, please, no, I need this job. I felt like the decision's already made, right? Like they're talking to me, they've called me. Nothing I'm gonna be able to say or plead or beg for is really gonna change their opinion. And I wanted to be able to leave the situation with a little bit of dignity, not like crying on this call. I mustered up the biggest smile I could, and I was just like, thank you for this opportunity. I've really enjoyed working for this company. I'm sad that this is the decision, but please let me know what next steps look like. And then at the end of the call, the HR rep was like, you don't have to work the rest of the day. That's where I kind of chuckled because I'm like, of course, like why would I keep working? Basically an hour later, I was cut off access from my work email, which allowed me to sign into my calendar, my email, some of my HR tools, a lot of information that I had stored for myself. I lost access to all of those things, which sucked. And then a couple of days later, a member of the IT team reached out to collect all of the hardware, laptop, monitor, stuff like that, that they had sent to me when I started to get it back. I had absolutely no idea this was coming. Not even a single piece of me thought that I would have this happen to me. It was a complete surprise. It was a complete shock. So that's what the actual process and kind of being laid off looked like. Now I want to talk about how I was feeling, how I've been feeling. So this happened about 3.5 weeks ago. Instantly how I felt, kind of weird, but I was kind of laughing. I don't know if it was that I was in shock, but I was just kind of giggly. I have an office and I live with my boyfriend. So I came out of the office and he was working out in the living room, and I literally just walked up to him like laughing. I don't even know how to say this, but I was just laid off from my job. And he was like, are you serious? It's almost like I was in shock. Of course, like I said, I had no idea that this was going to happen to me. So I feel like it's a pretty normal reaction. And after about 30 minutes of talking to my boyfriend and kind of just sitting with it, I went from being giggly, laughy to embarrassed and confused. When I was laid off, they were really clear that it wasn't a performance issue thing, it was for business needs. The reason I was confused, without going into too many details, was the organization I worked for was really vocal about how they were not going to be participating in tech layoffs, and that they had all these systems and monetary funds in place to make sure that all of the staff that was employed was going to be staying employed. I was like, it has to be a performance issue. It has to be a me problem, because why else would I be laid off? And in that moment, I thought I was the only person from the organization that was laid off. I did find out about a week later there was a couple others that were also. I then went from being embarrassed to sad. It was such a roller coaster of emotions that day. I didn't know who I wanted to tell. I didn't know how to tell people. I called my dad and I told him, and he of course was super supportive. And then I called one of my brothers and he as well was super supportive. And I told two of my friends. After I had those two conversations with my dad and my brother, and after sending a text to two of my friends, I felt like I couldn't tell anybody else. I kind of went into this mode of like, how am I gonna hide this? How am I gonna pretend to still work a job or just not have to share this information? So I would say for about a week, I didn't really tell anybody else. I didn't tell my mom. I didn't tell my other siblings. I didn't tell any of my other friends. By the end of the first week of being laid off, I can confidently say that the prevailing emotion was embarrassment. Going into the second week of being laid off, that's when I then went back to just being like, whatever. It is what it is. It's kind of funny. Funny in a way, it's like hard to cope with something, so you start laughing in uncomfortable situations. That's what I would say was like kind of funny to me. The second week, I had started applying for some jobs, but I didn't feel like I was in a space where I could do it because I still felt that embarrassment. I'm not good enough for jobs. And a lot of the jobs I was applying for, I could see that hundreds of people were also applying for them. Even though it was only a couple weeks ago, I don't remember pieces of this timeline because again, I kind of feel like overall I was in shock. But by the third week, most people in my life that are like close enough to me knew. And a lot of people were reaching out like, how can I help? I can share your resume. And I couldn't believe how much support I had. It's really easy to go into that headspace of like, nobody cares about me. I'm not good enough. I can't even hold a job, which I definitely was in that space. And then to see my family and friends just be so supportive was uplifting. And while I don't think it healed me, I was just so grateful to have that much support. So the third week, I would say the prevailing feeling was still demotivated, but I felt better. I did have that support. I was applying for a lot more jobs, stuff like that. And now we're kind of in the fourth week. So I'll talk about what I'm doing now. Now what I've done first and foremost, of course, is apply for jobs, a wide variety of jobs. Second, I've started volunteering, and so that's been a really great way to still feel like my skills are being used. I have also spent a lot of time sleeping and doing nothing and relaxing because I have the time and I can, and I feel like I shouldn't just be in a rush to get a job. I should also be taking time for myself to heal, for myself to think about what's next. And so lastly, I've also been considering going back to school. I'm not 100% sure what that looks like, but I feel like there's definitely opportunity for me to just think about what that looks like, and so I have done a little bit of that. I'm doing a lot of things and I'm also doing a lot of nothing because some days are definitely harder than others. I kind of am just taking it day by day, and I don't want to overwhelm myself with this job search or kind of what am I doing next, because I feel like, again, I keep reiterating this, it is a shock to be laid off, and it is a trauma. I don't want to sound dramatic, but it is a trauma and something that you have to heal from. And so I also want to give myself that space to do that as well. And lastly, my parents actually sold their house, so that's my childhood home. And I've been helping them with a lot of kind of cleanup, moving, getting prepared to move to their next house, and also kind of dealing with the emotions behind that, which is a totally separate video. It's been a lot of change in the past month for me that I just was not expecting in any capacity. It's been a lot to deal with. So I didn't mention this in the intro, but I definitely want to talk about money, and that's going to tie into kind of the last piece of this video, what I've learned from this experience. But quickly, I do want to say that I am lucky enough and also set myself up to be in a situation where I don't need to rush to get a job. I have enough savings that I can pay the bills I need to pay, and I also live with my boyfriend who is fully employed, and he pays half the rent, half the utilities, half the groceries. I'm in a position which, again, I'm really lucky to be in because I know not everybody that gets laid off has this, but I do have the opportunity and the time to kind of take this slow and think it through. While I don't want to take too long because, of course, I don't want to use up my savings just kind of sitting around doing nothing, there's definitely a fine balance. Not to mention I did get severance pay for my company. I didn't immediately have no income. Yeah, that's a little bit about finances and kind of ties into overall what I've learned from being laid off, so let's talk about that. I have learned so much from being laid off. To start off, just how we were speaking about money, I have learned that you have to be smart with your money. And I'm not talking about those of us who are just getting by paycheck to paycheck. If that's you, I'm not taking a shot at you because I've been there before. I have a past video about how I got out of severe debt. I was in nearly $70,000 of debt when I was 22. I get what that piece is like, just not having enough income to cover your bills. But if you do have enough income to cover your bills and in excess of that, you have to be smart with your money because a job is not a guarantee. You have to be putting away money in savings. You should be investing to whatever knowledge level you have. You have to be thinking about what your minimum expenses are, how much that takes, and if you no longer have a job, how long can your bank account hold you over? Secondly, what I've learned is that a job doesn't define you. I have had a job since I was 14. I'm 25, almost 26 now. And when people would ask me about myself, I would always talk about what I do for a living. I never spoke about who I was outside of those jobs. So now that I've had to work on separating myself and now being somebody who's unemployed, and I've never ever been that since literally the day I could legally work, I've never been unemployed. This is a really weird time for me to figure out who I am, what it means to be separate from your job, and it's gonna take me, I think, a long time to figure this out, but I don't think I would have started taking the steps to do that without this happening. So while I'm not grateful to be laid off, I'm grateful for the reflection that it's allowed me to have, and realizing that stepping into my next job, I have to find a way to protect myself from just labeling on what I do for work, because I am so much more than that. The third thing I learned is that it is okay to ask for help. I have been somebody who's been very self-sufficient. I've been afraid to ask for help, but the amount of support that I've gotten from my friends and family, from even some of my old colleagues and other connections I've made through work has been insane. While it hasn't landed me a job, it's shown me that people in my life do care about me. They care about the successes that I have. They care about my well-being. And so asking for help and being open about needing that is so important. Not to mention also the amount of support I've needed from my boyfriend, my partner. Some days I didn't want to get out of bed. I was really sad. I didn't want to eat. And so having him to lean on to be able to clean up dishes and make dinner and push me to go outside and plan events for us to do so I'm not spending my whole day inside has been saving for me. And so while I know that not everybody's in a relationship, you can reach out to your friends, your family, and just people in your community that will be there for you. They are out there, I promise you. They may not know that you're struggling, so you have to reach out, you have to ask for help. The fourth thing I've learned is that a lot of what you're feeling after being laid off is completely normal. Everyone feels embarrassed, everyone feels down on themselves, everyone feels not good enough. It's because we live in a society where a job defines you. Don't feel like you're weird, you're wrong, or anything. If you are feeling embarrassed, you're feeling sad, you're feeling angry, you feel like it's trauma and something that you're going to have to truly work to get over, all of these emotions are valid, they're real, and you are not wrong to feel how you feel after experiencing something like this. The final and fifth thing I've learned, among 1,000 other things, is to never feel too secure in your job. Don't turn down opportunities to speak to people about other opportunities. Make networks and connections with other people, but never feel like your job has your back, because that organization will cut you loose if it needs to. And it's not saying to never be comfortable and content, but never feel like you have this in the bag and it's always gonna be here, because organizations don't care about you. Your coworkers, your managers, the people around you may care about you, but at the end of the day, it's a business that's probably looking to make money. And if they aren't making money, you may be a part of the cut. And I guess like a little bonus tip is don't store personal things on your work email. That is so dumb of me. I can't believe I did that. But if you have information, whether that's tracking sheets, your own budgets, anything you're learning from work, templates, store them on your own computer or email them to yourself or something, just in a way that if you immediately lose access to your work stuff, don't lose out on a ton of information that you may want access to, because I'm stupid and that happened to me. Those are my 5 with a little bonus things that I've learned since being laid off, and I'm sure I'll keep learning more, or maybe I didn't touch on more, but I feel like that's like the best summary of everything that's coming to mind right now. That's the story of how I was laid off, what I've been doing, what I've learned, and I hope that this video helped even one person feel less alone. It is not a good feeling, but please find your best way to move past it and try not to blame yourself for what happened. With that, if you did enjoy this video, thank you. But also, if you want something more lighthearted, definitely check out some other things I posted. And if you have any comments or have any thoughts, definitely share your story and share your thoughts down below, as I would love to just kind of have a space where people feel comfortable talking and connecting about this stuff. With that, make sure to subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed. I really appreciate you watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.